Hello. Okay. Greetings, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. We're live. Um, uh, it is 5 o'clock. Well, almost 5 o'clock. It's a minute to five, but it will soon be 5 o'clock. And which is, ooh, did I do it wrong? I told everyone the wrong time. Uh-oh. Boy, am I an idiot. Oops. I was completely an idiot. You know, this is what happens when Bates thinks something. Bates think something, Bates wrong. This is what's I'm now telling people. Yeah, this is what I do. I screwed things up because I get the time wrong. Well, okay, I'm doing it quickly. I'm fixing things. You see me fixing things while I'm fixing things. I apologize. Ooh. This is what happens when, you do things and you think you're doing things right, but you're not. You're not. Teacher is bad teacher. Says we should prepare more. Well, I prepare more. I just will kill this. No. Delete. Move. And no. See, this is what happens when I do something is oops. I get my time wrong. I'm at my usual time and place. There. Okay, good. No one's here yet. I understand why, because I started on the wrong time. Oh no! My usual time is again 5 p.m. European time, which is 11 o'clock a.m. 11 a.m. in the Eastern Standard Time, and I picked this time so I can do this. Well, okay, I'm sorry. Now I'm 2 minutes in, and we just wasted a lot of time doing some weird, trying to correct my Twitter thing. I killed my Twitter item, and I put my new correct one. Oops. Now, okay, maybe someone will come and see me. We'll see what happens. I probably won't do it today. Well, today is going to be just some, talk about what I did this week. Well, first of all, I have to say that I'm one of my recordings for my Constitution course, the fifth session, maybe the fifth or sixth session. Therefore, this session of the sixth, I think the sixth session of it, which was done the Tuesday before Easter week, went missing. I can't find it. I know I uploaded it. I'm looking at it. Did I upload it? Did I delete it by accident? And I thinking like this. Did I delete it? I found the other one that I found the video for the thing, but I've not. I said maybe I deleted it. So I'm like, oh my god, did I delete the lecture? Did I really do that? Jeez, I feel so stooge. The sixth session. Because this week we had the seventh session, so sorry, not fifth, but the sixth session that was before Easter. So my Constitution course is going on. I posted the first 5 sessions of the introduction, the second current vision of the introduction to politics. I will post when I get 5 more. When I get a couple more, I will post those. I'm probably going to be doing the tools of politics, 2 weeks of tool of politics together, because I've agreed with the students to do it as a single class. So they might not like it, but we'll do this. We'll do it in the sense that we'll have an extra course right after it. Why am I doing it that way? This is because I'm doing. The week after next week, I'll be in Budapest for just the conference. I got paper, and I need to write some things more about it. I've been thinking about it. My friend told me, I discussed it with a friend, and he said, well, this is just too esoteric, Aristotle. You should talk about why doesn't Aristotle apply today? And I thought about, does he apply today because because no one believes in truth anymore? And therefore, the distinction between persuasion based on real persuasion versus fraud is just irrelevant anymore. And okay, I thought about that, and I thought, but that's not true. I mean, from the point of view of truth, the reference of truth, that's true. That he's right in one sense. If we don't believe in truth, then persuasion goes out the window, right? If we don't believe that there is a means by which we can talk rationally, and this is a postmodern position, then it goes out rationally. And I think that is something I will have to talk about in the paper, and that might allow me to expand it because right now it's kind of short, and with maybe a point or two more, and I can bring it up. And I'll talk about this at the conference. This is what I will highlight and say, this is the thing I'm thinking about. This is the point. I need to expand on it a little more. And just do that. And maybe that'd be the new article. And that way that works. What else? My chapter on, maybe I told you last week, the book came out. The book last May, I gave a thing. And I posted the video. My wife recorded the video of me giving that presentation about the ancient, i.e. Greek and Roman origins of constitutionalism. The book came out. You can find it. I made a kind of PDF of my contribution. I put it available on my academy.edu and also on my ResearchGov. And I'm waiting. I'm going to have to put it on ORCID. I'm going to try to put it on ORCID. I hope I put it on ORCID. And then I have to go to the Polish national site. Hopefully they put the book on there already, so I'll be able to find. Because otherwise, if the book isn't on the system already, then it becomes a pain in the ass trying to update it. So it's like, I got that. I'm waiting for Politeia, the Polish journal Politeia, to publish my article. It was supposed to be published at the end of March. It's already April and it's still not done. And I still haven't heard from the Poznan Political Science Journal, so-called political science review in that sense, because they said I haven't heard since my January when I submitted it. I got notification, and it's clearly I should get some feedback saying is it being considered or is it not being considered? What's going on here? Because if it's just kind of lost in the chain and it's not been considered, I might send it someplace else. But it's a good article. It's on the riddle of the middle, right? My riddle of the middle thing, which I was very upset when political theory opted not to agree to it because it really suited them. But I understand why they didn't do it in the sense that because it's kind of this has already been talked about a little bit too much. But no, I kind of played it uninteresting, and I had to for the Polish thing. I had to delete all the stuff about Martin Seymour Lipset that I thought would be interesting for American journalists, but Europeanists don't really understand Lipset, and it's not really that interesting in that thing. So I can see that. But for me, Lipset is interesting, and for the purposes of what I was trying to do here, how this the Lipset interpretation misled a lot of people about how to understand what Aristotle meant by the middle in that sense. And I might make another paper about that, how Lipset basically misled us. The Lipset interpretation and the idea of the middle class really misled us in a certain way, and even misled us from understanding what Jefferson saw, because Jefferson in many ways saw Aristotle's account of the mesos as his defense of the yeoman farmer, right? And that's the whole, the question of the fight between Jefferson and Hamilton. Hamilton wanted commerce and thought trade and cities were going to be the preserve, and Jefferson wanted the idea of rural. And that I remember the fight I had as a graduate student with Tom West. Tom West really supported Hamilton and argued, well, the peasants will always, you talk about the rural people as peasants, and that's the real problem with people like Tom West and many of the Straussians, is that they don't understand that the yeomen, the farmers in America, the farmers are not peasants. And that's the fundamental difference. This is why I've been having a fight with a lot of people about World War III, and I go, well, no, the Russians don't. The Russians and China can never win World War III. Because why? Because the only people who survive a nuclear, the cities will be wiped out. The cities, the big urban centers will be wiped out. Great. This is who survives as a culture. See, an urban-centered culture with only and the rurals are peasants. That's Russia and China. If the urban centers are exterminated or blown away, then there's no national consciousness. But in a rural culture, a culture where the civic identity is based on the rural identity, if the cities go, then in fact the cities are a problem. The cities are a decaying, rotten problem, and therefore you get, yes, the peasant, the rural areas will retain memories and identity, and will out of the rubble they will be strong and they will have an identity that will unify them and a motivating concept. Whereas the peasants and everywhere else will be just peasants. So I'm sorry. This is why anyone Russian and Chinese nuclear strategists know that they can't win in a nuclear exchange. Yeah, you can kill a lot of people, we'll kill hundreds of millions of people, but in the end, the only real winner, because you're not going to exterminate humanity. That's all the 1990s nonsense about 1980s Cold War or nuclear. The idea that the nuclear exchange will lead to so much radiation and everyone will die. No, that's an exaggeration. Even if everyone launched everything, the radiation would not exterminate all of humanity. And anyone who says that is exaggerating, and they're over exaggerating that. I think this was a logic fear. In other words, the real fear of nuclear was always that that a nuclear exchange, a nuclear fusion thing would ultimately. They were wrong about the idea that once Oppenheimer and gang feared that if you did you caused the nuclear breakdown, it would affect the whole nuclear structure, right? The whole nucleotide structure, and therefore all existence would be destroyed if you do it once. That was the fear. I am the destroyer of the world was meant that, and that this is where their theoretical physics was simply just. This was a possibility, but this is but it did not turn out to be this way. In fact, the problem with Heisenberg was really challenging the other guys, saying that, listen, guys, we don't really know anything. This is why Feynman was the kind of optimist here, right? So let's go think about this. Therefore, I'm going to suggest that any realist about the way, a geopolitical realist, is going to look at this and say nuclear war must on China and Russia. I see no victory. Nuclear war is only useful to what? It's a kind of it's the prisoner dilemma where there's no win. It's a lose-lose option, right? Not a win-win-lose, but it's lose-lose, right? It's the inverse logic of the positive, a positive sum game. It's not even a zero-sum game with winner losers. It is a lose-lose. So it is a win-win, but in negative contents, right? So therefore, this is what deterrence was meant to be. But what happens if one side is going to, everyone really gets clobbered, but one group will survive and will survive enough that they will be the only one that maintains an civic identity and unity and a longing, and that once and the restored world will be dominated by them. Okay, so from a Russian point, if I'm a Russian nationalist, I'm a Russian geopoliticist and a Chinese geopoliticist. Do I want the ceasing of Chinese and Russian geopower? No. So therefore, of course not. You're going to nuclear war's not going to be a game. I mean, it's not even really yes, it's a deterrent of existing systems, but from the pure point of geopolitical interests of regions, no. That's why the Russians were. I think this is bluff, and I think anyone who doesn't treat this as bluff, it doesn't understand the reality of nuclear weapons in that sense. Oh, I don't do. You're being kind of, nonchalant about the deaths of millions, hundreds. I mean, that's the tip. Yeah, hundreds of millions. Yeah, it's going to be miserable. we lose technology. It'll be the dark ages again. Yes, we did it before. We'll do it again. Humanity improved in that sense. That's why I've always talked about, the great lever. What do you call it? I have the book over here, Schrodinger's Princeton book, The Great Leveler, talking about all the history of how evolution has human evolved, how the Black Plague, the 30-Year War, these things led to human evolution and development, and how we are kind of, and even my friend, I don't know if he's we're kind of know each other. I met him, I follow him, he knows me. Ed Dutton's who's really complaining about the decline of IQ and the problems of what's going to happen because of decline IQ. Well, if you have, this is why, this idea that you're going to have the stupid Russians are going to create a situation that they not only they lose, but they create the situation that the future global winner will be the United States. Is that their interest? No. So come on, but you're saying you're being nonchalant about this. No, I'm not. I'm just being realistic. This is the logic. And this leads us into the segue. So what else I did this week? I need to finish my things. I did reading. Let me talk about the reading I did. A friend of mine bought me this book. This is John Galvin's book about Tolkien and the Great War, about the threshold of Middle Earth in terms of the Great World War, World War I, and how war in Tokyo. This is going to be that. I've talked about what I read Easter about Cicero. If you follow me on Facebook, you'd see my post about this and how great this was, and how wonderful this, this bilingual Latin and New English translation. I have concern about it. I talked about this already previously, but it's great. Those of you following my Aristotle's discussion will see that this is relevant when you look at the discussion of friendship, which is books 8 and 9. And then this is how to grow old. Again, my wife had last Sunday. My wife took a picture and had me sitting in the sun a little bit with the book on the chest. And as I was talking with someone, because my friend called me and I was talking with him. And this is another Cicero book, Cicero, the Senecals, about getting old, and it's famous on Cato, not Cicero. Cicero is the author, but Cato is the character, it's dialogue. And it's describing how being old is not necessary. How can you grow old well? And how old is not just a curse, but a prosper. And this is one of the old classics I used to read. And I'm in the middle. I read it once already. I read it many times as an undergraduate and as a young man. Now it's more relevant. I read it a little bit quickly, and I'm going to be reading it again a little more refreshingly with my glasses in that sense. This came. I was talking with my friend Glenn Elmers about this. He helped edit this. This is the Charles. This finally came by Amazon. This is a very good. This is the Fresh book and a celebration of Charles Kessler at Claremont, the Claremont guys. Michael Anton and Glenn are the editors of this. This is it's a decent book. I had some criticisms on Facebook. I said that I wish they did more on Federalist and Kessler's role in the Federalist. Actually, this is very useful to understand that I'll talk about later. One of the things I'm supposed to talk about today is Yarvin versus Ruffo, where Yarvin kind of attacked the Japhaites, and therefore this is as neocons, which I laugh at that. And this is I always have to say about Yarvin is that he doesn't know shit a lot of times. He's a genius. He's a mathematical system. He's a brilliant mind in terms of these lot of things, of system theories and this. He's very smart, but he's misinformed. He's badly informed about history, political thinking, and history of ideas, and has a superficial way. And I'll talk about that when I talk about Yarvin. But this is Kessler was one of the young Harvey Mansfield students who went to work with Harry Jaffa and became kind of like Jaffa's right-hand man along with Jaffa's own student, Bill Allen. But Bill Allen went to basically went to Michigan of all places, and so there. Bill Allen, W.B. Allen, his time at Michigan, and now he's published a whole new translation of the Spirit, Montesquieu Spirit of the Law, which is expensive, $150. I wish. If you guys want to buy me a gift for my birthday coming in May 28th, you can buy me a copy of, send me an Amazon gift card so I can buy by U.S. Amazon, because I only buy it by U.S. apparently. It may be U.K. I'll check U.K. But by God, I would love to be able to get this translation, but not Kindle. I don't like Kindles. I'm an anti-Kindle. I use Kindle for pop crap, pop fiction, pop things. So this is a very interesting book. It's worth reading. It has a lot of essays. Like I said, I wish it did more on the Federalist and the role of Kessler on shaping the Federalist debate in the 1980s, and how Kessler worked with Bill Kristol and the Kristol kind of position, Bill Kristol's position about this. And this is why some people will say, "Oh, they're neocons," right? But this is what's wrong, because in many ways, Kessler's federalism position and Kristol's diverged in the middle thousands on this. And Kristol took a more, what we call a more accommodationalist view to this. And Kessler started to agree with Marini and others about the dangers and threats of the administrative state and administrative rule. This against Philip Hamburger, a line of, Philip Hamburger went one way, or came one way to this from the law, and then John Adams Withergreen and who was a student of Jaffa, who wrote about the administrative state, and John Marini and other people's progressivist position, studying the progressives and their embracement of the administrative state, came into this critique, and then Kessler kind of supported it. But I think he became more by the Obama administration. It is his reaction to Obama that led to the divergence of, let's say, a Christilian position on the Federalist and presidency, and Kessler. I think therefore that's why there should have been more. The one article by Anton on Federalist was really not doing. The Pedestro piece is very good on progressivism. My friend Steve Hayward is about how natural right felt lost. Again, the progressive attack, right? There's two Federalists. The Federalist on Enterprise War by Peacock's very good. Matt Spalding did a good piece on prudence, on classical founders, the founders and prudence, right? Which I think was a very good. And in fact, this is where I would say that this defense of prudence would be a point where someone like Russell Kirk, who's not seen as an ally of Jaffa, would be. They have agreement there. Remember the one of the last books before. I mean, the very last book is, America's British Culture, which is kind of an attack on Jaffa. But the previous book to that, Politics of Prudence, would fit on this defense where Jaffa emphasized statesmanship, which emphasizes principle, but prudence too, right? And this is where they would intersect in that way. And I think Matthew is kind of a fusionist between the Kirkians and, let's say, the West Coast Straussians in that sense. Glenn, of course, does a Shakespeare, right, on King Lear, which again, that King Lear was Shakespeare. This is Harry Jaffe's good article, that part of the Politics and Shakespeare book that Jaffe did with Bloom, in the article on King Lear, right? King Lear is kind of presented as kind of a Platonic character, right? Or kind of a philosophic statesman in that sense. And then Murray Bissett on a kind of Machiavellian moment, right? I wish, again, there would have been more Machiavelli here. And then the very good piece by Timothy Casper on Cicero, I think, and Bradley C.S. Watson's Laws. I wish Bradley did something on progressivism, but he did the Laws. His progressivism book is much better, I think of that in that terms. But Glenn said that they let the people do what they wanted to write on. So that's, again, I would recommend this. And the other book that my wife wants me to talk about to her is the Glad Sad Book. And why did I buy this? Because, of course, everyone's going to buy it. I've been a big scholar in happiness, Aristotle's happiness. I got Brzezinski's book on how to be happy, because I mean that's one of the things I'm doing Aristotle's degree in ethics, the question of flourishing, how to flourish, right? That's happiness, right? This is the whole reason why we're doing the ethics in that sense. And Gatsad's public best-selling book on this is kind of like it's pop culture attempt, even though Gadsad is an evolutionary psychologist, but he's more of a popular culture person now. And my wife wanted me to tell me about it, because I think this will probably get translated into Polish in that sense, because I think this is the question of Aristotle's conception of happiness and living the good life, popularizes this everyday things, self-help, right? The other book, I'm spending a lot of time doing this. This is Todd Rose's little book that everyone's talking about, Collective Illusions, Conformity, Complicity, and Science of Why We Make Bad Decisions. I saw a TED Talk and I saw this, and I thought this was people have been convinced me I should look at this, and I've been looking at. I kind of read it. I read his two other books. I got them. I decided to go read them. I study game theory, and I understand these kind of collective decisions and information theory. I have my books over here on predictive irrationality and things like this, and understand this. And therefore, this is a very interesting talk about the way why this is things like information networks like Twitter creates kind of a situation where a few people are able to capture the system, and then in capturing the system creates the perception that what is really a minority opinion is really the vast majority, and human beings being the kind of pack animals that they are, in the sense that they are, they want to be included in the group, and therefore they will look at the dominant opinion and agree with it just so that they'll be liked. And taking a stand against the group may lead you being excluded from the group. And this is something most humans will not do. Only very rare percentage of people will take a stand that will risk them being excluded. Majority of people won't, and therefore the problem here then is that in an internet digital environment where there's global reality, global communication, this larger scale thing that is no longer framed within the natural context of communities. The normal human speaking is framed within a normal environment of community, of limits, whereas the mitigated through social mediums of digital communication, this is globalizing. And this is an artificial environment that, again, it follows the problem that Robert Michels raised about the participation. This is the problem of this is the iron law oligarchy, that in any overly large scale structure of organization, for it to be any way efficient, it ends up being an oligarchy. An oligarchy sends up it will be captured and governed by a few people that will manage the system or organize or sort information. And we know this problem from information theory because, again, leads me into some of the Yarvin points. Leads us to the crisis that most people just doesn't have the time or process. Most information is garbage, and therefore we need filters. We need mechanisms of filters. Most people don't have the energy or time to go sort things out. So we've come to depend on people to sort and filter information and point to us what's important and what's not important. And therefore, the role of editors and broadcasters were used to play the role of this. And what the digital revolution happened was that it opened that up, that we bypassed editors and broadcasters, and that anyone could get access, anyone could broadcast. And because this returned us to the world of the 19th century, where anyone who could publish could publish. Not 19th century, 15th, 16th, and 17th century. This early part of the Gutenberg galaxy. Again, this is why someone like Marshall, in order to understand the politics we live in, we need to reread people like Marshall McLuhan again, and not only the Gutenberg galaxy, but also his understanding media. Because I think this is how we need to understand the problem here. And what Todd Rose is talking about here is that we're often in a digital world we live in is often misleading us, because what's happening is that world is easily manipulated. Now it's manipulated two ways. One is the natural oligarchies, but also artificial. What happens is the owners, the owners of the social media entities, who at first took no, at first only wanted to make the money and profit from what it did. But then when they, after the effects, the political effects after 2016, 2017, and the left's political, the establishment's pressure on them to regulate information to protect the interest of the elites, led them to alter the algorithm and control the data information more. And in doing so, and promote certain information at the expense of other information. And this is something that he argues that this is the natural structure. Again, this is we can say that this is Robert Michael's and Moska's idea of the iron law of oligarchy applied to digital information and communication. That in a digital global situation, this large-scale global situation, what's going to happen is that a very few people will be able to get their views catched, and what will happen is that because the system that they will interconnect and say each other, they will have a conformity of positions, and that this large crowd of people whose conformity of positions are loudly and uniform enough that everyone sees it and hears it and will say, "Oh, that's the truth. That's the truth." In other words, it's taking the way of how oligarchies emerge in the realm of large-scale social networks and applies it to the language of information. I think, and I think that's how you can explain it this way. And the danger, but that's one way. This argument of the natural tendency of this thing, and therefore you need a way to counter this. And the way to counter this is turn the thing off. You destroy the social media. You just one way that the elites did it. The elites were threatened by the events of what happened there. That there was this popular, that the situation was they were organizing, they were cooperating, and they saw and they didn't like it, so they wanted to decide we're going to put since we can control this, the political power and private power, the ownership companies, intersected and agreed to cooperate. And doing so, they put the social media companies put a kind of weight on what information would be privileged and who would be allowed to participate, who would be pushed off, what positions would be told and overrepresented, and what will be minimized. And this is a way. I mean, this is something he doesn't really go into about that dimension. This is in other words, the digitalization of tyranny in that sense. This is that this intersection. This is another thing about this. This is what's the guy? Come on, the leftist thinker who is the digital gulag. It's called the gulag, the Google gulag, right? I forget his Michael Richenberg. Again, the old left in their idea of the way, again, echoing what Chomsky said, manufacturing consentist kind of position, and now became kind of on the right. What was once the radical left position now became what we call on the right. This is why even terms like deep state, which was originally conceptions of the radical left, now is held to be the position of the conspiratorial right. So that's that. These are some of the books I was reading in that sense. The other book, and I'm going to probably talk about it some more, this book, Lost Ideology. Friends really recommended it to me, and I was very disappointed by this book. I was really disappointed by this book. And this guy's at Pepperdine. I feel bad for Pepperdine. I mean, his other books are okay, but this one, he doesn't. He just basically seems to suggest that ideology is nothing more than an aspect of partisanship. Okay, which I think that misunderstands. He doesn't. I'm okay. I have to reread it more closely, but I'll reread it again. But I don't think he really understands ideology in any deep sense. Clearly not in that one way that Hannah Arendt. In fact, do I even see Arendt mentioned here? No, Hannah Arendt is mentioned only one page, 89. And we'll see what he says on about 89. Oh, this is about Schmidt, and he talks about Schmidt. Hannah Arendt, who witnessed firsthand the rise of Nazi and faced the leader monopoly. Again, this is her point about ideology was much more. She talked about the leaders and totalitarian, right? The pauperization of this. I think he doesn't really address Arendt's position about how ideology alters reality, hence Eric Voegelin's conception of how ideology creates a Gnostic or kind of information world which distorts reality, and therefore the political actors no longer respond to reality but understand the world through ideology. And it's not merely about partisanship, but rather a distortion of reality that leads to ideology in that sense. And that therefore ideology systems don't come, therefore competing ideologies aren't even playing on the same rational. Their whole definitions are completely different. And as anyone knows, if you don't have the same definitions, you can't argue with each other. You can't have rational discourse. Therefore, it's only coercion can be marched in that sense, in that radical sense, in that problematic sense. That I might do a book review about this or video about this. I should do this. This is people tell me this is a very important book. I was really annoyed by its kind of throwing out obvious little naturalisms, like American academics tend to say, like, oh, see, the white supremacy of the 3/5 clause of the Constitution was proof of white supremacy. I'm sorry, if you were a freed black, did the 3/5 clause apply to you? There was lots of freed black. Of course, the majority of slaves, the vast majority of slaves were black. 99%, maybe 100% of it at a certain point in time. By the early point of the early thing was maybe because of indentured servants until 1680s, 1660s, you had still much of white indentured servitude were treated as property and slave. But by the 1700s, less and less, and by the greater importation from the Caribbean of Negro slaves was increasing. But were all Negroes slaves? No. And some Negroes became emancipated, became free. Now, were they the people who were not slaves? Were blacks counted 3/5, or only slaves were counted 3/5? See, that's the problem with their thinking. They don't understand that. If a person who was not a slave, they ultimately reread everything in light of the erroneous doctrine of Dred Scott decision, which argued something that was simply not the case. Dred Scott was a perfect example of a court ruling trying to solve a problem by arguing blacks were never citizens, right? Well, no, that wasn't true. In fact, as even the dissent in Dred Scott clearly makes clear. So there is that's that little world. So I'm going to be talking about that book some more, and I think we're at a point now. I have to talk about the thing I promised everyone to talk about, and probably maybe why people are here. I forgot something. I forgot to talk about the comment. Okay, I need to do that. I promised I'd talk about the comment. Corliss wrote again, responding last week. He says, it was an interesting discussion. In the book I mentioned, Pierre Monod goes on to unusual status given to Islam and is a choice that I related to rejection of any kind of natural law because it helps promote a very minimum and open idea of human nature and the basis of that. And he goes, yes, I think that's right. There seems to be a particular social and political groups that are more interested in this concept of human rights than others, and I think that's a very good book. Recently, I've heard that Christopher Latch provides a good introduction in his description of some of them in The Revolt of Elites. Now, this is not a new book. This book was written in the 1990s, mid-1996, I think, 96, 97, before he died. This is one of the last books he wrote. And Christopher Latch was a man of the left, famous book, Culture of Gnosticism. I think I should maybe someone talk about Latch's book of this. I can't remember if you ever talked about Latch before. Yes, I have. I very much liked Lash. I mean, 1990s, I liked Lash's True and Only Heaven. He was a man of the left that all of a sudden us traditional conservatives kind of liked because it was an attack on this, the new kind of elites. And someone like I didn't know, I was a Bradford student and close friend of Bradford, but I wasn't really good friends with his older friend. What's his name? Everyone talks about him. Anarchy. I'm blanking. My brain is blanking. Oh, come on. Everyone. Anarcho-tyranny was that Sam Francis. Okay, good. My brain blanked. Sam Francis was a good friend of Mel Bradford. Sam came up with the concept of anarcho-tyranny. Why am I talking about this? Is because, this is one of those important aspects of this problem here that I think Corliss is hitting on, about that Christopher Latch is looking at this elite that is radicalized, this culture of narcissism that he wrote about, and how this he wrote about 1978, 77, 78, a time of Jimmy Carter, and looked at that and said, oh, he was kind of a critic of the neoliberal position. But remember, many progressive, right, conservative Republicans loved the neoliberalism. I love the neoliberalism because it was against the socialism and the controllism of what was going on with the leftists. And to be honest with you, the problem here is whether we understand communities and larger situation. You can't treat the larger network as you treat the communist wants to treat the larger world, the larger environment, like as though it is a community. You can't. That is tyrannical. On this point, you could argue that someone like Hayek and Karl Popper are right, that this is the closed society is a totalitarian model. You try to like this larger input. You try to take what is true, useful at a community level, a local community level, and apply it to larger systems. This would be repressive. But the repression, what is useful and beneficial in a community level, and this is my argument always against the libertarian, who libertarianism makes sense at a larger network between different communities. But if we're going to globalize this, saying every community has to be, how are they not? See, libertarian position and the communists are globalizers. They want the situation to be uniform in system, whereas the reality is that, well, you can have the economic system. In other words, you can have the societal level, large-scale society level, or the German Gesellschaft structure, where it's based on community interests, trade and commerce and things like that, it's division of labor, and that you can have those kind of relations at a larger scale that creates cooperation and you benefit, and that small communities would benefit from. But at the same time, they cannot be the basis by which those small communities emerge. And the danger here is that these systems can corrode and destroy those systems. So you can only accept them and rule them to the degree that they benefit these small systems. Otherwise, what happens is these are destroyed and everyone is left isolated and alone in that sense. This is the Tocquevillian problem of individualism and the Durkheim problem of enemy, right? Latch was very much a person who studied this sociology tradition of Durkheim and understood this problem of Durkheim and the elites. His book on the elites is an outstanding book. And that's right. David Goodhart's book, again, is a perfect influence of this. This is a popularization of looking at this problem of, again, the somewheres, the people who live in communities, rooted in this. Again, returns us to libertarian. This leads us back to the debates of the 1990s between the liberals versus the communitarians, right? The libertarians and liberals versus the communitarians. I favored the communitarians, even though my friends were saying, "Oh, how dare you?" I said, "Listen, I have very much Hayekian sympathies. towards a merchant order. Yes, this is the way. It's better that this idea that we have top-down rational order always leads to despotic constructions. And yes, all good order emerges from the way individual actors emerge out of this. And that we can even see this in the debate of the fight within the two claims of authority that we see in Weber. The idea between tradition customary, which are versus rational legal, right? Rational legal top down, principle law kind of top down, rationalistic. You could maybe even argue for the idea of this. That the problem with this is that one customary understands customs is coming up for the bottom, but both are top down and bottom up at the same time. One is an authority establisher. Authority does it, and his claim is the argument in Weber is that it comes from the source of authority. Weber is not talking about the mechanisms by which and how it does, but rather the source and the claim that is being based on, not the mechanism by which authority emerges. So that's why the Herrenschaft, the discussion of the three types of Herrenschaft, the classes of Herrenschaft, which is in both his famous Vocation of Politics lecture, and as well as in his book on economy and society, on the forms of rule. This is a very important point that we have to understand, that he's looking at the concepts of class and not the claim by which authority emerges, the type of claim, and that's why the charismatic claim is so interesting, because it's based on the personality and the response of people towards that personality, and has in a way that shows we can say the thing. Again, I bring Weber in here. Again, I think Christa Lasch is bringing up Weber also. This revolt of elites. This is all about Durkheim and Weber, and the way we understand the role of elites into that light. So I've done this backwards. I talked about my books. I was supposed to be in the middle, and I talked about that first. I talked about Corlin's article, and he talked about that. Matt Goodwin's graduation elite. Matt Goodwin's work on royal, his Substack stuff and his good stuff. His recent Substack article that Matthew Goodwin has written, which I don't subscribe to. I get the brief beat. He's talking about the farmers' revolt, which I've seen in Poland, but I hear it's actually even happening in England. And they went to Westminster, and he talked about this and the way this is happening. Again, this is part of his old large populism discussion, analysis of populism, and the grow between a graduate elite. And hence, again, this is Matthew Goodwin's book on this that talks about this. I think Matthew's probably writing a new book. I hope he is, on this divide, the graduate elite, and that he mentions that here. But I think this is it. Again, David Goodwin's Somewheres versus Everywheres. It's a nice popular metaphor. The gradually, and Corwin says in France they talk about Lasch as a good starting point for describing Macron's core support base. This is this elite. It is the elite. This is and I think this is why someone like Lasch, in popularization of Chris Lasch, would be, because Lasch was popular in France, and because the book The Culture of Gnosticism was a very good seller in France at the time, even because remember, he was seen as a man of the left in that sense, and therefore this idea of them finding voice in someone like Lasch will leave the kind of the intellectual left to go to support the people and the farmers against whereas the traditional issue of the left was urban and cosmopolitan, contra to the particular in that sense. So again, I'm going to end that, and then let's go look at my third point. My card is I'm going to talk about the big debate. Now, this is I'll spend the last time of this today debate on talking about the Yarvin-Ruffo debate that was published at IM 1776 by, I keep on getting his name wrong. I know who it is. I'm going to get, so you should know who he is. He's a buddy of yours, right? Gavin? No, it's yeah. Mark Granza, he's a Facebook buddy and things like this. Mark Granza, 1776. He basically it's basically the debate back and forth between Yarvin and Christopher Lolo, Curtis Yarvin and Christopher Ruffo. Ruffo is kind of like the hero of many on the right in the sense that because he's been anti-rough green pill, right? Okay, I get that. I misspelled Ruffo. Today's Ruffo, in his book on attacking on gender politics and recent things. What is the Ruffo book? It's Christopher Ruffo. His new book is America's Cultural Revolution. In 2021, he's No Way Home. There's a fellow at Manhattan Institute of Policy Research in New York, and at the New College of Florida. He's a convactivist. He's kind of part of a fellow. He's a millennial, born 1984. He's a young guy, and that's why it's a different generation. This is in many ways someone like Curtis Yarvin is tail end Gen X. I'm older than him, so I'm at the bitter age. He's more my wife's age. Curtis Yarvin is my wife's age. Born around the same time. She was born in communist Poland. Yarvin was born to military brat. Lived a lot of his formative years overseas at army schools and foreign schools. Very brilliant mathematician, reader. He's very introverted personality. Weird personality order. In that went to Brown and became a graduated star of mathematics and advanced things. People saying, "Well, why is this interesting?" Yavin is successful. He's 50. Like he's 50 in that sense, right? He's a year older than my wife in that sense. That thing's born 71. My wife's born 74. Yarvin is, he became, he sees himself kind of, he has an MBA, he has a Brown University, he has advanced degrees at Columbia, Berkeley, science, software degree, programming, and things like that. He made a company that became Urban Network platform. And then in 2000, he co-founded Tyron to oversee Urban and helped lead it in 2019 when kind of gave up. He was during this time writing kind of a Substack in 2004, from 2007 to 2014, and then later in Substack called Gray Mirror. He had his unqualified reservations. He was a blogger earlier on Online Democratic, which he often, he was involved, a blogger, a very young blogger in that sense, and kind of reactionary. He was very much influenced by the thinkings of people like Hans Hermann Hoppe at the Austrian school, and particularly Hoppe's book, Democracy, the God That Failed. Now, this is the problem. This is the problem with people like this. Is the same thing with an academic agent who got also seduced by Hans Hermann Hoppe, and the Austrians. There's a school of this, and another influence again. This is interesting. Both Yarvin and someone like Nima Parvini, although now Parvini is not a math geek. In other words, the education Yarvin had was science oriented, and his humanities was superficial. In other words, he didn't study political philosophy. So when he gets exposed to something like Hermann Hoppe, he's just easily seduced by it. And this is what's wrong with libertarians who just go more economic based, who really don't know the history of tradition. I've never found someone like Hans Hermann Hoppe, and never was convincing to me. It's an interesting argument. He goes too far. It's like the same thing with the famous argument of the libertarian 1980s. There was a guy who used to make really scary arguments that hardcore libertarians would talk about selling body parts, and I forget the guy. very famous, hardcore right winger, libertarian, and that arguing for libertarian principles just unmitigated, even no matter how extreme they were. Hans Pope, a German scholar, German thing, Austrian schools approach. He did this. Now the other person Yarvin was influenced by is, of course, like many people, James Burnham. Burnham is very important because Burnham's idea of the elite theory, following an elite theory, but also his managerial, first major book, The Managerial Revolution, and then his new Machiavellianism, was very much shaped by elite theory and this idea of the managerial revolution. It became very insignificant. I mean, people ignored it. I mean, it was popular at the time. This is even in 1930s. 1930s, it was very popular. Was even highlighted by Time magazine at the time. He was a man of the socialist left who rebelled against communism in that sense. He was a collaborator with Trotsky, who then rebelled against Trotsky and was kicked out of the principal journal of the Critical Review. I think what is that famous journal in New York? That was part of Critical Review. Yeah, maybe. No, not Critical Review. No. Partisan Review. Sorry. What's his name? Burnham with this. And the other thing is that he became reading of people like Thomas Carlyle, the 19th century, mid-19th century Victorian, who looked at this in terms of that he was kind of a libertarian who then combined Carlyle's dark, pessimistic vision with that of Hans Hermann Hoppe, and then God That Failed, and then tied that together with Burnham's idea of the elites. So it's this dark model, democracy can't work, with the organizational conception of here. Now, he was very much influenced libertarians of that. He was influenced as a young tech in 1980s and 90s. He was very much, Yarvin was part, as everything says, by the kind of libertarian character of tech culture. And a University of Tennessee professor apparently introduced Yarvin to the Austrian schools, and he basically got his mind shaped by the Austrian school. But then what happened was the darkness hit, and then he started to give this dark view, right? And the 2000s failures of things, and only it argues that the 2000s and the Bush times led, and the growing tendency of the Bush administration led him to kind of oppose a global system, which he saw there was a global system that was like this. Again, this is his use of metaphors, and I think this is the problem. He uses everything's in metaphors. He was the man who brought into the thing the application of the metaphor of what is it? He was friends with the alt-right. He was at the same time he kind of uses position as distances. In other words, Yarvin distances himself from the alt-right, but still counsel people like Milo Yiannopoulos and others to attack those on the left. In other words, he was kind of one of these guys of the alt-right. He influenced it, but then sought to attack it. I think Yarvin is not an alt-right thinker. He influenced many people on the alt-right. Yeah, many people would argue Yarvin's influences is, there's two big influencers on this, is Yarvin and Bronze Age Pervert, right? In these two different alternate things. Bronze Age Pervert was this Romanian guy who studied at Yale University, Straussian, much younger. He's a much younger generation than Yarvin. Again, Bronze Age pervert is more. He is more millennial, more tied to Ruffo in that sense. Christopher Ruffo, anyhow. And the difference is East Coast Straussian, trained by the East Coast Straussians versus the West Coast Straussians. Bronze Age pervert was. And I think he saw the nihilism inherent in the fundamental position of many East Coast Straussians thinking. Yarvin is a very interesting to me. Yarvin, the story was Yarvin was the person who gave Bronze Age Pervert's book, Bronze Age Manuscript, to Anton, right? So therefore, there's connections between Teal and people like that. I don't want to get involved into the Yarvin debate. I've never found him that useful. His dark vision. He is the man who gave us the red pill, and that's the use of the application of the red pill in political discourse. He was the person who used the metaphor. He was the one. This is the legend, is that he applied the idea of that image from the Matrix movie of the red pill versus the blue pill, right? That you can either see the world as it is and like this. I have a problem with this. It's a simple metaphor, and it's a movie metaphor, and yes, metaphors are useful to understand things, but metaphors are also misrepresenting. And I think there's a big difference between ideology and this metaphor of the red pill. And I think the problem with the red pill is that, this is another point. Maybe I'll talk about this next week. Red pill versus blue pill. I don't think it's red pill. But blue. What is blue? Red pill? The red pill is simply that you become you already see problems. You're at a crisis, and there's two solutions. You could see the things as they really are and see the problems, and then see the reality and embrace the reality, right? And then maybe resolve it. That's what red pill means. The crisis is that I would argue, using the language of the American philosopher, what's his name? The Structures of Scientific Revolution, Thomas Kuhn, right? I'll use the language of Kuhn in this sense. Kuhn argues that the reality is that once we have a paradigm of thinking and rationality, it is the uniform belief of, it's kind of like what, and in fact, that's the problem. I think in many ways, Yarvin's conception of the cathedral is a blurring of what, it's a blurring of the conceptual mechanism. I think that you go to a paradigm in Kuhn is not only an intellectual belief system, it's also an institutional belief systems of reward, of people being rewarded, hired, promoted, fired, right? The paradigm protects and preserves its own, it preserves itself. And as long as the paradigm works, and as long as it explains the world, then it's able to exclude those who want to challenge the paradigm, marginalize them. That's where their power, in other words, the power of the paradigm emerges only by its ability to explain things. And that once people no longer believe the paradigm, right, and that the paradigm doesn't explain things, that our obvious experience of the world leads us to question the paradigm. This leads us to the disbelief, right? So the emergence of the choice of the black pill and the blue pill emerges at a point where we begin to see the flaws or the problems of the paradigm. Okay, and then we have a choice. We take the red pill, which allows us to see the truth and to be able to see how things are versus how and go beyond the dominant paradigm to see the reality, to discover maybe a new truth and the reality of the world, embracing of reality, versus the blue pill, which is what? The blue pill is this delusion, happiness. It is kind of like the soma of it's okay. Don't worry about it. Just sit back and enjoy. Don't worry about it. Go back to the. Just go back. It's easier to go back. Just go back to the paradigm and be sorry. Again, this is cathedral. This is what's cathedral. And when he talks about the cathedral, this is a nice new way to mix this up. But that's Kuhn's conception of paradigm. And what is the problem with therefore the cathedral is not inevitable. The cathedral is, I would argue, Kuhn's position is absolutely more correct here. That when the system is no longer belief and people see that the things, what's going to happen is that, okay, maybe the people who then blue pill then are never going to be able to they will want to be happy and want to avoid that. And those who are, in other words, you don't get that critical dissatisfaction. But that's not the issue here. And this is the problem. Now, the other problem is not, even though I think this is the danger of why his metaphor is the black pill and the white pill. I would argue the black pill is what? This is everything is doomed. Everything that's Carlyle. And actually, that's even recently our academic agent, right? This is probably this is the black cover. This is the black pill. Everything's fucked, man. We can't fight it. It's inevitable. This is the argument of Yarvin. Oh, it's never going to. It's funny. It's better to give up democracy because this is the argument that Hans Popper. Oh, democracy is always bad. Tyranny. It's better monarchy. Well, really? The argument of monarchy was, and Aristotle's argument always, fewness is the problem with the monarch is the few. And it's easy, the few is more arbitrary. It's up to the whims of the ruler. Whereas a aggregated interest is slower, and therefore, yes, it can be worse, but it's more difficult to have, and it's more difficult to form. Therefore, in other words, the many are better than the few, or even the one, right? That's Aristotle's critique in Book 3 of the Politics, the middle books of politics, chapters 11, 12, and 13, right? This is that famous problem of what about the virtue of the many, right? Which I think Yarvin fails us. And Yarvin, who should understand emergent order, which I'm surprised, a person who should understand the nature of networks and emergent order, comes to believe rather the idea of the controlling order from the top-down paradigm. Now, of course, you understand networks. We can argue that, well, the network owner is the kind of constructor, and he can play the game. So he's right, but that's an artificial. In other words, the network is an artificial information order controlled by the creator of it. What happens if you can create global competing information orders? And that one network, and that the networks can that if and you don't like one network, you go to another network. The network's competing. What happens is that the idea, once you have hegemonic networks, then that don't compete, that then control, then you don't have freedom. You have only freedom by competing networks, right? And what Yarvin doesn't like competing networks. Again, this was even more shocking that someone who's trained in libertarian thinking would then deny the very concept of emergent order. But an emergent order creates a single order. No, it doesn't. Again, this is the problem. This is how we understand. We can even understand Kuhn's conception of paradigm. Yes, an emergent order may come up there, but it only is temporary in terms of this degree of ability to satisfy all the participants and the explaining how the system works. If it doesn't work anymore, then it collapses. It's support. Then people will search alternatives. When the existing model doesn't apply, people will cease to believe, and then people will look for alternative answers, and then there'll be a conflict of beliefs, and then what happens is a new order a new principle will emerge, right? That's at one level. That's what I would argue in information theory. Now, back to the Ruffo debate, and it's like Ruffo is a policy person who's interested in policy. He's trying to act things. He's institutional. He's trying to do things. Do I have problems with Chris Ruffo? Yes, I think he like all Jaffaites, they have a kind of a particular understanding of American founding that may be misleading. I have more agreement with them on many issues. This is where paleoconservatives and conservatives can agree with again, Michael Anton. This is the thing. The paleo movement and Anton kind of intersected here. The problem with Yarvin is that Yarvin doesn't reflect reality. And his black pill, all his philosophic position shaped by Carlyle, it's a imperfect understanding of the very concepts that the philosophical concepts that he's engaged in superficial. He will immediately throw movie reference. Now, it's cool. Movie references are cool, but they don't substitute for real analysis. It's like one of my students who study American culture studies, they'll give you movie references, but okay, the movie reference can generate an idea. You can't use it as evidence. It doesn't replace real social cultural analysis. Culture studies cannot replace real data. It can help you. In other words, they are cultural metaphors. Movies are merely artistic representations of artistic perceptions of the world. They're interpretations. They're not in themselves the world. Now, if you want to understand how we understand, we can of course look at art to see the understanding of the artist, and we can also look at art in terms of maybe how the ways the art. In other words, argument. You get art to say how the world is. Problematic because it's not the world who makes it. It's the artist who lives in the world responding to the world. So it's the artist's vision about the world that is being portrayed in the message or the communication of the medium of the art. So therefore, a movie that talks about it, okay, it's useful metaphor. It's a metaphor. It'll be at best a metaphor. The red pill versus the blue pill. It's a metaphor about the question of how to respond to a crisis. Do we see the truth or do we go in delusion, right? The problem with Yarvin's position is that he looks at the red pill and sees the truth, and then he sees it from the perspective of doom, that the system is broken, it's inevitable, it's always going to be this way, you can't fight it, we can't stop it. It's pessimism. It's a pessimism. It's a dark pessimism. Everything is doomed. This is Carlyle, of course. Carlyle, Matthew Arnoldism, right? This is the kind of Matthew tragic, this kind of late Victorian moment of loss of tragic, this idea that our aristocratic order is gone. This is a kind of historicism this is kind of in the position of someone like Tocqueville in the last part of volume 1, part 2, where he last chapter 10 where he gives the three races in America, where he gets the darkness of that. He's an aristocrat who knows that the democratic revolution has made the aristocratic order impossible anymore, and we have to accommodate to the new democratic order. Right? There's a pessimist inevitability about democratic revolution. There is a historicism in here. There is this idea, this inevitability of certain orders that you cannot resist, and we might prefer the old system, but it's never coming back, and we can't go back. And this is Yarvin doesn't have this. Yarvin's position is actually even worse. It's a systemic structure of organization will prevent this, and until you get a new elite that emerges that controls things, the new puppet masters who are controlling unless one elite eliminates the other elite. Only through the elites that we can make the world. And again, this is what Nardini's position on the populist delusion. The populace is always deluded because elites run everything. Well, this is where I disagree. I think Machiavelli would disagree. Elites are come and go. Elites are the great, and the elites are made and unmade by power, people of power, and that many can have power. The system itself, the people who go. Yes, there's a problem about the way the knowledge-based information goes. That information can the many can be deceived by the few who manipulate information, who control information. But the point where, again, the Kuhnian problem is that once the many see the reality that doesn't explain what the lie, the myth, or the position that the many that we believed was true, now we're confronted with the reality, the physical reality that it isn't true. The many will resort to their common sense, or they can be brought out with pleasure, happiness. That's the Nietzschean last man, right? That's the problem. That's the Nietzschean, the idea that the last man is going to just pick comfort, right? That comfort. But what happens if comfort is not available? In other words, there's no comfort. That I look at the world of the progressive left, and there's no longer any room for comfort. There's only pain and misery and suffering that you have to embrace their vision. And that transgender person is ever going to find comfort? Really? They're going to find comfort and happiness? No, that is misery. Everyone is miserable. In that reality of misery, the many will say, well, fuck this shit. Okay, that's the problem. Is you can't sell people a negative vision. That the reality is misery and pain. They're not going to take it. And now you can argue that if you can provide them enough pleasure and avoidance of pain, but even then the system will collapse. You can only offer them so much drugs before the drugs wear off, right? Diminishing marginal returns. And then you're confronted with even a worse world. So the illusions, the mechanisms of control, of denial, ultimately leads a Pareto optimality point, and then starts getting negative externalities. So Yarvin, your own theory should lead you to understand that the system will break down, and therefore maybe Ruffo is right. Ruffo has limitations, yes, I grant that, but in other words, the solution is, everything is fucked, let's surrender, versus let's fix it. Now, of course, this is why people looked at someone like Peterson. I say his first name, Jordan B. Peterson. His famous argument, fix your room. Well, how is fixing your room going to solve the fact that we lived in a oppressive hetero? No. It's the first thing you are able to organize. You organize yourself from below up. That the person who can't solve his problems can first solve his immediate problem. Then he's able to get more problems done. This is emergent order. This is where Peterson is right in that sense. Instead of talking about the higher thing, deal with the immediate end that you can accomplish. Do that and then move on. Because once you accomplish one thing, you then can accomplish other things. And and I think this is a response. This is why people say, this is the response against, the red pill doesn't see, again, what Yarvin and Parvini ultimately bring is the black pill. Hopelessness. The fruitlessness of resistance. You're confronting the Borg. Resistance is futile. Well, sometimes it's good. This is that line that Strauss said against, Strauss had this line, sometimes going out with the good fight is worth it. Yes, you might lose, but it's better to lose going out slugging than simply just go out in a certain way. Now, of course. Crazy people telling me there's going to be a war with Iran. Fireworks leaving Iran. Going to send a missile. Okay, yes, whatever. Some predict that within 48 hours, Iran is going to go off. In other words, fireworks out of Iran are going to go off. Sorry, no, I don't think that's going to. Even if it does, it doesn't matter. The Iranians are going to what? They don't have enough anything to do anything. It's they're a SWAT, they're a NAP. I mean, that's the same thing with my problem with the Houthi rebels. We could deal with them. We could just level them. I agree with leveling them. I'm a Roman. Level them. We're too nice. We should simply say, you leave. 1 mile gap from the ocean, 10-mile gap from the ocean, leave or surrender to the Gazites. Surrender to the Israelis right now, or in 72 hours, we're just leveling the place, inch by inch. Want to die? Die. Your choice. Oh, world, small as violin. Because you won't care if they wiped us out, you wouldn't care. You'd wrap your fingers around this and say, "Oh no, what a horrible problem." My wife gets mad at me when I say this, saying you're too cruel. I said, "No, it's realist. I'm no fan. I mean, I have criticisms. I criticize the Israelis too. I don't want America involved, but at the same time, I think Israel has the right to defend itself. And we should do the question of what YouTube rebels are doing there is not about that. It's about trying to be big man and trying to impress their Iranian friends to cause this to destroy the trade commerce and global trade. The Red Sea trade is important for Europe, for Asia. It is a very important thing for Asia-European trade. That the Americans have to patrol America has to do all the heavy lifting is a problem of Europe. Europe should be doing more heavy lifting in their navy and protecting their own commercial routes. The British have long lost their navy. It's trying to recover it, but still not capable of doing much. And the French navy is kind of weak. Charles de Gaulle still alive? I think it's a dying old rotten most. Have they built new carriers? I know the Italians and the Italians have made two of these small carriers, and so hasn't the Spanish. I think one or two these new carriers they're not Harriers but C-35s. But back to the Yarvin point. This is why I found Titus's comments on his Substack thing, promo kind of review of this. I think this is an important debate. I think Yarvin didn't do him any self-service. As a Gen Xer, I myself would look at him and I'm disappointed by him. He should get educated. He should understand the tradition that he's doing. He's a little bit too self-confident about his ignorance. Mm-hmm. And perhaps he should not be. Ruffo has problems. I disagree with some things that Ruffo does. I think he is more of a policy person than a thinker. But to label Sam Adams as a leftist, or even to call Harry Jaffer a neocon, that's like completely just getting facts like that. Oh, Gordon Wood, he doesn't understand even Gordon Wood's position. Gordon Wood's position evolved. Oh, I'm going to read Gordon Wood's position. Yeah, he can name a name. He knows. I mean, when I think of Yarvin, he sounds like that arrogant prep boy. And what is that movie called? The movie that what's his name? Come on, Robin Williams plays a psychologist. I'm going to be going bat head. Good Will Hunting. Jeez. In Good Will Hunting, that scene where the scene where Matt Damon and Casey, was it Ben Affleck character is flirting with the girl, or what's her name, Minnie Diver, and this arrogant Harvard guy is attacking Ben as being a con man, saying he was at college, and then talking about which was idea of the American Revolution, and then Matt, who's read all the books, Matt character, who knows the reality of the text, this destroys, deconstructs them. Now the problem of Yarvin is, to me, Yarvin is really like that arrogant prep boy who knows the titles and knows the superficial reading, but doesn't really understand the fundamental. He understands the nature of a programming system. He understands the nature of this. But philosophical concepts and even historical concepts, beyond the kind of knowing the fact and basic information, and then he superficially will be able to present it as though he knows it. This is what the Ivy League education teaches you. And therefore, Yarvin is a perfect example of the kind of Ivy League education that occurred in most of the that shaped the tail end of the Gen Xers and of the millennials. And I would think what's interesting is that he turned to economics. In other words, he turned to mathematics and then turned to economics because he understood the economics, because math, right? And then what happened was that but he was introduced. This is the danger of being introduced by philosophy to philosophic concepts by libertarians, because they usually understand them poorly. You think Murphy Rothbard really didn't understand. I hate to say it's going to piss my friends off. Murray Rothbard's taking of the ancients and even of Locke is simply just horrendous. He doesn't understand it. And therefore, this would leads us to why people like Herms become so popular, and that these kind of weird takes get a hold in this Austrian libertarian movement, because they don't really understand the kind of deeper argument, the more complex and contradictory, the idea of contradictions within the concept of liberalism, the tradition of liberal thought. In other words, liberal thought, good, and by the way, Hobbes is authoritarian, and Locke. No. I'm sorry, Hobbes is also the father of liberalism. And that inside the apparent position of liberalism is both the authoritarian and it's the contradiction of liberalism that's inherent in the heart of liberalism. Locke just masks the contradiction and clothes it in Christian and natural law clothings to kind of make it more acceptable, a poisoning pill so that they can take it. So back to, I want to stop here. I'm an hour and a half in this, and people think, I promise not to go this long. So I'll stop here soon. The black pill and the white pill. I mean, that's something I should talk about. I think the next weekend I might talk about black pill, white pill. Maybe I'll do a special meeting on Sunday one day. Black pill, white pill, because I think this is important. I'm almost thinking I want to do a book on the white pill. I think the problem is what is the white pill? The white pill is not hope, optimism, it's hope. If the black pill is doom and despair and pessimism, the white pill is hope. And life needs hope. Life without hope is not worth living. Life without hope is not worth living. Oh, but that leads to delusion. No, white pill is not delusion. Blue pill is. I'm adapting your matrix metaphor. It's the blue pill that is the delusional pill, Mr. Curtis. It's the blue pill that leads you to deny the reality, to accept the order that is. The white pill is not about that. It's about looking at the red pill, and there's two responses to the red pill. In other words, that the white pill and the black pill are the fundamental responses to those who have taken the red pill, who are in the realm of truth. That is, the choices between hope and despair. maybe it's reason revelation. This is tied into the maybe this is even underlies the scope of reason revelation. That the idea is, do you have pistis, faith, belief, and faith? These are different concepts, but they're tied to the idea of hope. Hope gives us something to believe in, a reason to be, and to reason to sacrifice, the reason to achieve. Without hope, everything is doomed and there's nothing can be done. The funny thing is that what about the situation you know you're going to lose the fight, but you still believe in the things you believe in, and they were fine. This is why Cato the Younger kills himself rather than submit to Caesar. It's not despair. It's because he would be, in other words, living under Caesar would be a life less worth living. Letting Caesar win, Caesar's going to win. Caesar won. The world is over in that sense, the old world. But what is so unique about Cato? Cato's position was not a situation of despair, but rather it was a defense of a way of life. Now, the real Cato the Younger was a much more problematic person that created the conditions that led to the problems that led to the rise of Caesar, and therefore Cato played a role in the inequity of the system. So Cato the Younger is not pure innocent, but Cato the Younger here is what? Cato the Younger here is still a hero. This is why someone like Addison in his book Cato, the play by Addison, was why Cato the Younger and Cato's representation is why something. This is a book that George Washington and many founder generation looked to heroically. It's not, in other words, they didn't do it out of despair. It wasn't the black pill. It was the white pill. And I'll end on this note. It's the white pill. Yarvin, you are Yarvin, and even AA, you are a seller of loss. Why fight? If everything is doomed, as you say, and everything's structurally doomed, and all your new elites come, and that's going to be inevitable, and you can't do this because of the cathedral, and Well, fuck it, right? Well, that's despair. That's not an answer. Yes, things may be bad, but if you have hope, you can overcome them. You can find strategies to undermine the powerful. You can wait. You take the opportune moment. You wait and bid your moment, and then strike when the opportunity gives itself to you. Prudence. This is why prudence is important in this. And I'll end on this note. I'm in my hour and a half, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry I rambled, and I probably was bad YouTuber. I hope you guys like it. Maybe people will ask me to do more about the red pill, white pill response. In that sense, I think I maybe have to do that. I might want to write a book about that. I want to write a book about the white pill. I think this is something that what is the white pill in that sense? I think the white pill is not. I think I'm right here. That it's the choice of this as the white pill and the black pill are there. It's the realm. Only those in the realm who've accepted the reality that the red pill offers. You can only then have a choice between hope or despair. And of course, from the point of view of despair is the option in the blue pill, then the blue pill wins, right? If this is what's so funny, this is that scene why the guy who says he betrays Morbius, one of the guys, Morbius's right-hand people, says, listen, what Morbius, this dark world of this miserable situation of reality, this hopeless despair of the situation. There's no hope. There's no hope of winning. We can always just despair. Oh my God, this is not, give me the fucking old lie. At least I'm happy there, right? That's that scene in that movie. That's the insight here. If you only offer people despair, they will turn the blue pill. Truth won't be your answer. Truth cannot be the answer. They will flee despair. People will not embrace suffering as the end in itself. Suffering and pain, the nature of human beings, we avoid pain. We seek pleasure. That is the nature of any living being. Any organic living being moves towards pleasure, moves towards benefit, flees harm. That is the logic of a rational being in that sense. This is the logic. Yeah, maybe you get a mentally perverted monster entity that thinks pain is benefit. Therefore, he still thinks and that suffering is good, but that is not the norm. This is an outlier who's wrong. This is an outlier whose model and his programming is incorrect. So we'll stop here. Please like the video. We have 2 people on now. We had a couple on before. They left and didn't like it. But please hit the like button. It helps if you hit the like button. I hope people like the video, like this talk. I will promise to do some more on these issues some more. I thought I'd talk about the Yarvin and Ruffo position just to hit on it because I thought it was interesting, a very interesting debate. I mean, to be honest, I have always suspicions of Yarvin. I mean, Yarvin I have issues with. I kind of understand him, and I see he's powerful. I see his influence, but I still this is one of the reasons why I became a YouTuber. Not that I oppose Yarvin, is that I think Yarvin does more harm than good. In that sense, and this is what Bronze and a little bit. I like Bronze Age pervert. I mean, I can understand it, but also he does a little more harm than good. I don't think he's bad as Yarvin in terms of the black pill. Bronze Age is, I think there is a kind of joyful glee, this kind of this middle Nietzschean position in a Bronze Age pervert that does not exist in Yarvin. There is this joyful joy, this kind of embracement of joy of this moment, that there's this, okay, we can enjoy these alternative life, this idea of life itself. There is a joy in Bronze Age perverts' positions. There is a rejection of the nihilism of the kind of Straussian liberal, but embracing the particularist and vitalist conception sees life. Now, the problem with the vitalism I mean, that's another thing. I can't read Bronze Age. It's very difficult for me. I mean, I was reading. I like his book on his dissertation. It's good. It's good. I wish he wrote more stuff like that. Bronze Age pervert's own book, Bronze Age Mindset. I have an ebook of it, and I can't read. Every time I read it, I kind of have this. I wish to God he'd pay. He's rich enough that maybe he should do a second edition and edit it and correct it and make it tighten it up. Because I think that's a book that needed editing. That is a book that needed editing. That is a book that really could have used a little bit of editing, a little bit of things, tightening of the arguments. But that's beyond my scope of things, so we'll stop it. So if you like it, hit the like button. We'll talk about these things again, maybe next Friday. I'm going to be Budapest on 24th, 25th to talk about my Aristotle paper. We're finishing up Aristotle still here on the ethics. I recorded up to April already, May already. I do more recordings, so I'm not going to do some probably tomorrow on that. That's it. Like it, the channel, hit the like button. If you didn't like it, you can say no, but say why. I don't think you do it. Those of you who come afterwards and watch us, please put comments and response, make recommendations, make suggestions. Please, this is the way to do it. Again, please hit the like button because it helps the algorithm. Share it with media. Bring other people to come to see this, watch this. Clip it if you want to. If those of you want to clip me and get me in trouble, I don't mind. In other words, I can do it well. So that's it. That's it. Hope you guys have. We're way over an hour 30, almost hour 40. So we'll stop today. Take care. Bye bye. Have a good weekend. Take care. See you later. Bye bye.